Today, we're going to talk about how to use social comparison to your advantage by finding a financial role model.
Welcome to Wisdom and Wealth, where we talk about the human side of money. Join us as we dive beyond the numbers, unpacking the psychology of money to equip you with the tools you need to be wise in wealth.
I'm Frazier, Chief Behavioral Officer at RFG Advisory, and let's start with this. Comparison is just a normal part of being human. We all compare ourselves to others in some way, shape, or form, but the question is, are those comparisons helping you or are they hurting you? So let's take a look at the science of comparison, the dangers that come with it, the benefits that can come with it, and finally, I'm going to give you something to walk away with to help you identify and use the right role models in your own financial life, using comparison for good. So first, what is a financial role model? You may have never heard this term before. It's simply someone whose behaviors and decision rules you admire and adopt to help you move closer to your own financial goals. It could be someone you know personally, a parent, a mentor, a colleague. It could be someone that's more public, like an author or an investor, an entrepreneur, business owner, somebody that you follow and look up to. But the key to it is this, that it's not about their wealth. It's not about their lifestyle. It's about whether their process and their decisions are observable, attainable, and then aligned with your values. Psychologist Leon Festinger discovered what's now called social comparison theory, which is when we don't have an objective benchmark in which to evaluate ourselves, we automatically look to the next thing, which is comparing ourselves to others to figure out where we stand. And that instinct, it's hardwired. Here's some interesting research around social comparison and money. The research tells us that it's not just how much money you make that matters. It's actually how you rank compared to the people around you. These studies find that your income rank in your peer group is actually a stronger predictor of life satisfaction than your absolute income. In other words, if you make $100,000, and those in your circle of influence, your friends, your peers, also make $100,000, that's different than making $100,000 if those around you, your peers, your friends, your social influence, if those around you make $200,000, $500,000 or more. It actually impacts your life satisfaction regardless of the fact that you're making the same income in both scenarios. Comparison's not a bug, though it might seem like it. It can actually be a feature. The question, though, is how do we use it wisely? Most of us will default to what's called upward comparison. Upward comparison is looking at people ahead of us because it can feel motivating. But oftentimes, if we're not careful, it can backfire on us as well, because what we know from research is that if we're looking upward, doing upward comparison, it feels motivating, but we also feel that gap between where we are and where they are, which leads to increased stress, reduced financial happiness, it even leads to more debt and lower savings. And when those comparisons come from things like social media highlight reels, the damage actually multiplies. Behavioral economist Sarah Newcomb found that frequent upward comparers report worse financial emotions and worse financial behaviors. Not only do they feel worse about their money, they act worse with their money. On the other side of the coin, we have downward comparison. The idea of, well, at least I'm better off than them. And that can feel good in the moment, but what actually happens is it tends to breed complacency. Now here's the good news. Comparisons don't have to hurt, they don't have to be bad. We can use them to our advantage by picking the right role model. And with the right role model, it can actually transform your financial life. But only if that role model feels attainable and relevant, and they have values that align with yours. Research will tell us that superstar role models only inspire when their success seems within reach. If that gap feels impossible, it actually leads to feelings of discouragement. If my goal was to be the next Warren Buffett and be worth north of $150 billion, that could potentially be discouraging. Here's something to remember. We're motivated differently. We're motivated by different things. So think about your form of motivation and what's important to you. If you're focused on growth, let's say, you want to find a role model who's also growth focused and has a growth mindset. If you're focused these days more so on security, you want to find a role model who's also focused on protecting and preserving what they have, that's going to resonate more with you than somebody who's focused on growth. Either way, a role model offers you a roadmap. Instead of comparing outcomes, you can compare processes and behaviors, and that's where the good change actually starts happening. Let me give you an example. Ari's 33 years old, mid-career, has a good job, just got married, about to start a family, wants to move up, wants to grow in his career, but what he ultimately wants is less stress and a clear path to financial freedom. What he often sees in his life are these people online, influencers, but even friends posting about their material success on social media. And Ari in that moment has the tendency to feel behind. He can feel stressed, and it leads him to start overspending to try to catch up and close that gap. But now let's flip it. What's a better way to compare? Ari chooses a role model closer to home, somebody he knows well, somebody who's playing the same game as him, somebody who has the same beliefs. It's his old manager, Sam. Why Sam? Well, Sam saves a good portion of his income automatically every year. He drives used cars. He invests in simple index funds. He likes to splurge on nice vacations with his family instead of chasing lifestyles. And that doesn't mean that you should do all of those things. What Ari found is that he also believes in those things. And so he can use Sam as a roadmap to adopt the same behavior and let that be the driver of his financial decisions and the source of his comparison in a good way. Now suddenly Ari's comparison isn't draining him, it's guiding him. Here's a quick word of caution. A few pitfalls to be aware of. Number one is choosing an unattainable model. We already talked about this a little bit, but you can't make the gap feel impossible. If the gap between where you are and your role model feels impossible, you're gonna quit, you won't stick with it. Number two, be aware of highlight reels. Remember, you don't see the debt behind the luxury car and the big house and the month-long vacation. Number three, a value mismatch. Again, we talked about it a little bit. Just want to be aware that if your role model optimizes for maximum wealth, for example, but you value flexibility, that's not a role model you want. That's not a roadmap that you want to follow. So here's a quick challenge for you, something you can do to help identify and find the right role model. First of all, identify the 5 people that you spend the most time with in your life. Write their names down and then ask, do I compare myself to any of them? And if so, are they an upward comparison, a downward comparison, or is it possible that they could be a good role model? After you do that, pick 3 potential role models, write them down, and one of those 3 has to be somebody that you know personally. Write them down, look at some of their behaviors, the processes that you admire, that you want to adopt, and then pick one to start adopting and copying this week. Here's what I want to leave you with. You can't stop comparing. Comparison is just a part of being human. None of us can shut that off, but you can choose who you compare yourself to. Financial role models let you turn comparison from a source of stress into a source of growth. And the trick isn't to ask who has what I want, it's to ask whose process can I actually follow. As always, if you have any thoughts, if you have any questions, if you want to discuss, reach out, contact your financial advisor. Until next time, stay wise and well.